This morning, I am so excited because we have a guest visiting us today, and she's got an inspiring story that I would love if you guys just give her a warm welcome right now to kick it off. All right.
Good morning.
So, this is one of my friends, and she is doing something inspiring in her life, and so I won't steal her thunder. I'll let you introduce yourself. So, do you want to tell us your name, tell us how old you are, and just tell us some random facts about you to start with?
Okay. Hello, my name's Taylor. I'm 18 years old. I like tennis, and I like to spend time with my friends.
That's cool. That sounds good.
And my favourite food is sushi.
Oh, all right. Okay, now you've made some friends here, but that is good. So as you might have gathered from today, we're actually starting our new series, and we're going to be chatting about Catalyst. And Taylor, at 18, has already been a Catalyst for quite some time. And Catalyst is about being a leader and someone who's making a change. And I would love it if you would share about what you did at a young age to start making a change.
Okay. So at the age of 11, this is prior to my organisation, we had some friends who organised like a container to go to the Philippines when they had the massive typhoon. And so I organised with like the community 2 van loads full of things, and there's like a photo and everything that I've got as well. And then I kind of realised that I wasn't finished helping there. And then I gathered pyjamas for Starship, and I still realised I wasn't finished there, and so I started my charity called Mummies in Need. I was 12 years old, and I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that at 12 years old, I knew exactly what I was doing, because I didn't, and I didn't realise the need out there either. I'm not entirely sure why. I think I just realised that there were kids out there that didn't have exactly what they were meant to, and that not every baby had a safe start to life. And I'm not entirely sure how I knew that at 12 years old, but yeah, so my charity is for mums. It started off being for young mums, and we provide baby items and support. And now it's just kind of for all mums, because as the years have gone on, we've realised that everyone kind of needs help at some time. And also in New Zealand, there's not much support for young mums particularly. They don't actually get like a benefit until they're I think it's 18 years old. So we have mums that are as young as 13 coming to us. So it's quite crazy. But also there's so many mums who are like one-income families, and they need lots of help, and they don't fit within the WINS requirements and other charities. So we kind of just accept everyone, and yeah.
That's crazy, hey? How inspiring is that? The thing that just blows my mind is that she was 11, then she's like, I'm not done yet, and she's 12, and now for 6 years this has been happening and actually really making such a difference in so many people's lives. So can you just tell us why you called it Mummies in Need, first of all, and then what it looks like an average week for you doing Mummies in Need?
Okay. I'm not entirely sure why it's called Mummies in Need. I was young, and I think that even though it is Mummies in Need, it's actually aimed for families. So we do have single fathers coming to us as well. But if you'll notice, if I'm not sure if anyone has a slide or anything like that, but the way that Mummies is spelt is actually wrong. I was 12, clearly couldn't spell, so it's not Mummies, it's like Mummys, so yeah.
Cool.
And it's actually really exciting, because I was a law and business student this year, and it wasn't really working for me. I didn't enjoy it, and I didn't think that I was going to have a future in it. I think it had a lot to do with what God feels his plans are for me, because over the last few months I've realised that it is Mummies in Need. And I was working full time at a job, and I actually just finished yesterday. So what my Mummies in Need day looks like for the last few months has been really hectic. I've been incredibly stressed, because I've been at the shed until 10 o'clock at night trying to sort things out after getting home at 6 o'clock. So I'm really looking forward to a new beginning next week, where I can just spend the days in the shed and trying to get funding behind it, because we don't have any, and just trying to make it a lot bigger. And yeah.
That's so cool. So actually, whilst you were studying full-time, even as a student, you would come home, respond to requests on Facebook and emails, respond to people dropping things off. I've seen a picture of your bathroom, the spare bathroom at your house, which was the original storage place. And it's hectic because she's given up her ensuite bathroom. The space in her own bedroom is just, the floors are covered, stacked with stuff people are bringing in that she would come home, sort out, put into boxes for the ages and for things, and then, deliver it. People would come and get it off you. You've roped your mum in to help out as well.
Yeah, my mum's been amazing. So I've had it since I was 12, and obviously throughout school and going through NCEA and exams and a stressed teenager life, she's been like amazing. So she sorts out everything now, so she's not so involved. That's just personal choice, and I've also had a little bit more time on my hands. Yeah.
And there's so much stuff that you were needing storage. And
Yeah.
so you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So it's actually really exciting. So this was kind of when I realised that I wanted to take Mummies in Need on full time, and I wanted to make it something, and I realised that it was my calling. I reached out to people, and I just said, look, I need some storage. It's really not working out. My bedroom is full of baby stuff. Our spare room is just full, and the bathroom is full. Like, it wasn't working out. And we actually had a storage company contact us. They're called SpaceMax, and they're in Lincoln Road in Henderson. And so now we have a storage unit there. I'm not entirely sure how long that's going to last, because currently it's overflowing, and
Wow.
I think we need something bigger, but it's fine for now.
That's so encouraging. And honestly, it's been such a journey from how it started to how it is now. And this year now you're wanting to go full-time and register it as a charity, which is an amazing step. Can you tell us how this has challenged your faith?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, aside from the fact that it does take a lot of time, and that's taken me like time from being with God and, being with the Bible and learning more about Him, because I'm just so stressed and overwhelmed. And if you talk to my parents, the last few months it's been really hectic. I mean, I've been working full time. I have a partner, and I've been trying to fit him in, and I've been trying to fit friends in, and it's been really, really hectic. So the time I should be spending with God is really not there. But like, aside from that, I mean, it's challenged it in a way that, I mean, I thought I was going to do law and business. Ever since I was 10, I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. And when I realized that it wasn't what God wanted, it really made me struggle, because coming to the conclusion at 18, after 8 years of thinking I was going to be a lawyer, it was hard to kind of be like, oh, do I have to? Like, and also now it is really stressful thinking about how I'm going to get funding and build this and everything. But I know that God has me, because every time I kind of close some doors, He keeps opening them, and He's like, no, this is what you need to do. So it's really evident that He wants this to happen. But I'm like, oh, can you just let me go to uni? And it's like guaranteed income and everything. But yeah.
Wow, isn't that cool? It's so encouraging to hear. So can you just tell us then, how can somebody even help you or contact you or support you?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook page. I'm getting a website made up actually as we speak. And we're always looking for volunteers. It's really hard doing it by myself. So I have 5 awesome volunteers who are with me in the shed at times as well, and they're awesome, and they reply to emails and messages and everything like that. But we're always looking for more, and as Mummies in Need, the weeks go on. In fact, the last 2 weeks I've had 500 new likes on the page, which is just insane. I have no idea where these people are coming from, but it's just continuously growing. And we're always looking for volunteers, and we have a Give a Little page if you feel financially inclined. If you have younger children, we collect things up to the age of 2 years old.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's so cool. And it's actually like amazing, because she's doing this with all her time. She's stopped working now and taking it full time, but this isn't a paid role at all. So she's really just trusting in God to see, He's moved her this far, and we know that He's going to continue to move you. But yeah, if anyone wants to support and encourage it, give up some time to sort out some boxes, all you got to do is go on the Facebook page and send Taylor a message. But honestly, you're inspiring us. Like, 18, and you're really challenging everybody in this room, because we got no excuse. You started that at such a young age, and it's turned into something awesome. And I know that God's going to continue to open those doors, even if you want to shut them, and it's going to continue to grow. And so, yeah, we just want to say that we're proud of you. We're honestly here supporting and encouraging you. And, yeah, we just want to continue to support you in any way that we can.
I often think about it, and I get asked the question so much, like, why did you start this when you were 12, and how can we do this? And I mean, even though I have no idea why I started it at 12, I know that as soon as I saw a need, I just made an action. And I didn't think about it. At 12, you don't think. So it's about putting the excuses behind you and just making it into action. And although I think now, and I'm like, look, at the age of 18 years old, as busy as I was, I would never have started it. And it's only because I did start it at 12 years old that it's still there. But I could have shut the doors at any point. I mean, I could have been like, no, I'm going through level 3 and I just want to shut these doors. But I didn't. I just kept going because I saw a need and I knew that I needed to make an action. So as hard as I know it would be if you are thinking about making a change, I'd say just do it, because as soon as you put the excuses behind you, it does get easier. And when you see the difference that you're making, it makes it a lot easier, and it's really rewarding as well.
Oh, that's so cool. Let's give her an awesome hand, guys. Thanks so much. Before you sneak off, we just got a gift for you from us, and we want to continue to support and encourage you in any way we can. And here's a little donation towards your collections. You can go and grab it. Yeah, you don't have to carry it right now, but you can chat to them and come on back in. But I want to encourage you guys to keep giving and keep supporting. And in any way, if you have some free time, I know she would really, really appreciate it. All you got to do is go on her Facebook page. Thank you. All right. Who's inspired by that? I feel like I should just sit down and not even say anything else. But I'm going to anyway, so brace yourself. Hey, so we're actually starting this series, as you've heard, Catalyst, and it's all about a guy called Nehemiah. And, there was something that bothered Taylor to the point that she did something about it, right? And I'm pretty sure, because we're in a room full of people, that there's going to be something in here that bothers you as well, at least half of you. And it could actually be something small, like people in traffic when it says merge like a zip and they just don't. Yeah? Or how about people who leave the toilet seat how you don't want to find it in the middle of the night? Has anyone experienced that? Yes? Half. The boys are saying no and the girls are saying yes. Or the people who put the milk back into the fridge when it's like 99.9% empty. What's the point? But these are just small things, right, that bother us. And a few months ago, I actually had my bridal shower, and I had about 30 of my close friends and family come over. And in that time, my amazing friends had decided to video Wes and ask him all these things that bothered him about me. So that was great for the world to see. And one of the things he said was that actually it really bothers him that I leave my dirty socks everywhere. And there might be some truth to that, but at that point, we weren't even living together. So if you asked him now, he's probably got a ginormous list because my hair just goes everywhere. But since we've moved in together, there's been something that I have discovered quite ironic, and I'd love to share with everybody here. And this is not my sock, nor are these, or this. So just to clarify, I'm not the only one who deals with the dirty socks issues. See, these are actually all just small, silly things, right? But if you guys think about it, let's get deeper. What actually really bothers you in this world? Like, what needs being unmet just bother you so much that there's like a heavy burden on your heart that you feel something has to be done? What bothers you so much that it actually consumes your thoughts often and it takes up a lot of your time thinking about the injustice of it? Or I'm going to ask it this way, what would you say breaks your heart? Today as we start this new series, Catalyst, we're going to be exploring all about this ordinary guy called Nehemiah and how he wanted to be a catalyst for change with his God-given vision to do extraordinary things. We name this series Catalyst because catalyst is an event or a person causing change. And our hope is that by the end of this series, that you'll have a moment or more than a moment that you also feel from Nehemiah's experience that you want to do something, that you want to put it into action, and that this can be a catalyst time for you, creating change in your world as you know it. So whether you believe in God or not, we believe that God has a plan for every single person in this room. And we believe that He's designed you for a purpose, and He's also put a burden on your heart for a reason, and that's for you to do something about it. Today, as we're looking at what really, really bothered Nehemiah to the point that it broke his heart, I don't want us just to sit there anymore. I want us to really take it on board and see what it was that actually called him to act and do something to the point that he rebuilt a wall. So, I'm going to get into the scripture with you guys. So if you have your phones and you have the scripture on your phones, you can, or it's going to be on the screen. But before we get into it, I'll give you some context, okay? So we can find it in the Bible, in the first half of the Bible. It's called the Old Testament, and in there is actually a book named after him called Nehemiah. So if you want to look it up. Basically what's happening before our story is that when the story starts off, the people of Israel, the Jews, they'd actually been in captivity for years. The Babylonian people had come, they had attacked and destroyed their whole city in 587 BC. So this is a story that happened a very long time ago, okay? So these people, they were living in their hometown happy, and then along came the Babylonians. They completely destroyed it, okay? They broke down the walls, they burnt down the city gates, they took anything of value, they even took all the people as captives. So what was left is probably, as I imagine, just an empty wasteland, okay? That's now their hometown. And now all these people are in captivity, and decades later, there was a new Babylonian king, and he decided, hey, I'm actually going to release all these people back to their homeland. And they had probably were so excited. They've probably been dreaming of this for generations, because this is decades later now, to go back to their homeland. But can you imagine what their homeland would have looked like? Because remember, no one had been living there for years, so when they get released back, it wasn't home as they would have remembered it. It would have been overgrown. It would have had no structures, no jobs, no systems or leadership. There wouldn't be any crops or farmers. There wouldn't have been anything that would make them feel like they're excited to be there. In fact, the place was exposed. The walls were down, the gates were down. They were actually wide open where they could be attacked again at any moment in time. So this wasn't a good place to be. They were probably feeling pretty hopeless and thinking maybe captivity was even better. So this is where our story picks up of Nehemiah, okay? So that's the context, and here he is 142 years later after the destruction. So there would have been so much overgrownness in that city, probably overrun by rats and donkeys and who knows what else. But this is where he comes in, okay? So he also was taken exiled out of his land. He probably grew up in captivity in a foreign land, and he actually worked for the Persian king. So he was a cupbearer. And today we don't really have cupbearers, but basically his job was, because there was so many people at war with each other and there was like a power struggle, lots of people were always trying to take over power, and so they would try and attack the king. And one of the ways that they would attack the king is actually to poison his wine. So Nehemiah's job was to go everywhere with the king, and this gave him authority because he was in conversations with the king. He was in his presence all the time in meetings, and he was always beside him. So he had good authority, but his job was actually putting his life on the line every single day, because he would try the wine before he'd give it to the king. And if someone had poisoned it, well, Nehemiah would take one for the team, and there'd be no more Nehemiah. So it's a pretty risky job, huh? I definitely wouldn't want it for myself. You'd never know if that day was going to be your last day or not. But thankfully, as our story goes, Nehemiah hadn't been poisoned yet, and he was still alive and well. So this is where the story picks up in Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 2. It says, Hanani, one of my brothers, came to visit me with some other men who had just arrived from Judah. I was asked about the Jews who had returned there from captivity and about how things were going in Jerusalem. So his family had come to visit. They'd just been released back, and he's asking, hey, how's it going back home? What is it even like? And this is their reply. They said to me, things are not actually going well for those who returned to the province of Judah. They were in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem has been torn down, and the gates have been destroyed by fire. So here they come bearing the bad news to him, who's miles away at the time. And in verse 4 he says, when I heard this, I sat down and wept. In fact, for days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven. So it's not a great situation to be in. But there's something I want you guys to notice about Nehemiah's response. Do you see that it bothered him so much hearing the news of his people in his homeland that it actually caused him to sit down and weep? It's fair to say that it probably crushed him to the point that it broke his heart hearing this news. And it was actually through hearing this bad news that he actually decided to birth a vision to see change. And this is how Nehemiah becomes the catalyst leader that we know him as today. Now, if you think about you, if you heard that bad news, that the whole city was destroyed, people were in a bad state, and it wasn't going well, we'd probably feel sad as well, right? We'd feel sad, and maybe we'd do something about it. Maybe we'd send a food parcel, we'd make a donation, we'd send a little care parcel. We'd definitely pray for them, but maybe that's all we would do, because remember, it was miles away, and we'd probably forgive Nehemiah if he did the same thing, right? This kind of thing actually happens in our world every day, all around us, and we do feel sad for them. We do pray about it, but there's not always much more we can do. And Nehemiah, he could have done the exact same thing, except he didn't. He did something different. And after hearing the sad news, he sat down and wept, but he didn't just stop there and give up. Instead, he actually birthed a vision where he was like, that's it, from this point, something's got to change. He was so consumed by what had happened, the injustice and how he felt, how heavy it was on his heart, how sad he was for his people, that he had said, that's it. And this is his vision. He said his vision was to go and restore his people in his homeland. He made it clear that's what he was going to go and do. I think it's so cool because he could have totally given up, and this story wouldn't even be shared thousands of years later. But he didn't give up. But he didn't just start with, okay, that's my vision. The thing that he started with was something that bothered him, a concern. And that's exactly the same as the story from Taylor. It didn't start as this vision, like she was saying, to make this big charity turn out to be so big. It just started with a concern at 11 years old. And the same for Nehemiah. It started with something that bothered him, and from that, a vision was born. So I want to ask you guys, think about it now. What bothers you to the point of tears? And probably the men out here are like, well, we don't actually cry, so nothing. But I'm not talking about just actual tears. What is something you wrestle with? What's something that sits unwell with you, that like, you're just like, man, that's not right when you see it? Something that makes you sad and really is heavy on your heart. What do you wrestle with? What is that thing? What is it that breaks your heart? You know, for you it might be seeing how many people, how many kids in New Zealand go to school without shoes, without breakfast, without lunch. It's all around us. Maybe the thing that really breaks your heart is people being neglected and bullied and abused, even as adults in the workforce or at home or at school. Maybe for you, the thing that really breaks your heart and makes you burdened is people who have just lost hope because they've given up and they're in a cycle of addictions or something that is just destroying them. Maybe for you, it is people who are isolated and alone without any support around them. Maybe the thing that breaks your heart is people being treated like slaves, even in their own homes. Or more than that, being slaves to child labor or sex trafficking all around the world. Maybe the thing that breaks your heart is broken homes and broken marriages, seeing people rejected, hopeless, discouraged, so far from the plan they had for their lives. With health issues, people on the streets, homeless, with mental health, struggling without the proper help. What is it that breaks your heart? There's so many people in the world who have seen a vision, something has broken their heart, and they've decided, no longer is this going to happen on my watch. And two people that super inspire me as visionaries, I want to share their story. There's one lady in particular who is just my biggest hero, and if anyone knows me, they'll know who it is already. But she created a vision out of nothing. She was born into a poor family in Macedonia. Her father was killed when she was 6, and then she just lived with her mother, and they struggled financially growing up. But her mother always told her that you never eat a mouthful of food without sharing it with somebody else. And so from such a young age, it was birthed in her to have a heart for charity and for caring for people. And so much so that she decided to go and study to become a nun. She moved all the way to Ireland to study, and from there she was sent to India. And from the places in India, she ended up in Calcutta, of all places. This is a place where nobody wanted to be. And she was so heartbroken by what she saw there that this is the vision that she birthed. She said she wanted to aid the unwanted, the unloved, and the uncared for in the slums of Calcutta. And so she did. And her name's Mother Teresa. And now the world knows her name, but she didn't start off that way. She was just an ordinary person who had a heart for something. She allowed it to be a catalyst for change, and she did something about it. The second person that really inspires me, who is a visionary, who's causing change currently all around the world, is a pastor and public speaker and author that I respect and admire hugely, and her name is Christine Caine. She was beaten and abused sexually for years growing up. She was adopted into a home in a foreign country. She had so many questions about her identity, her self-worth, her value, that she just sort of could have given up on life easy and not made a difference like she's doing now. But instead, she actually allowed God to heal her in that, and she claimed on to the promises that He had given her and her identity in Him. And now she started a charity called A21. Her vision is to rescue young women in sexual slavery and abuse all around the world. But she didn't stop there, she says, and restore their identity and worth in Christ and who He says that they are to be. If God can use ordinary people like that, people who have had the roughest upbringings, the people who you would at least expect to go and create ripples of change all around the world, I promise you He can use people like you and me as well. The encouraging thing is that you only have to look around this room to see that there's already people who are already putting their vision into action and who have been a catalyst for change in our community, and that's so encouraging. But I think there's more for all of us. There's a number of things that break my heart, and honestly, I could be here all day sharing them, but two main things that really weigh heavy on me is, one is loneliness. I feel like it's so wrong that people have to live alone in this world without any support, with no one to be connected to, and just journeying through life by themselves. Over the past few years, my nana had been quite sick, and she was in hospital in Auckland here for quite a long time. So I would go and visit her every second day. And when I'd visit her, she was actually in a hospital room with 7 other people. There's 8 of them in this one ward. And every time I'd go, the other people would get so excited in there and chat. And I found out that actually no one visited any of the people in that room. And that just made me so sad, because these people are parents, they are siblings, they are grandparents, they are neighbors, they are somebody's someone, and yet no one was there visiting them. That kind of thing just shouldn't happen. And that's why I'm so passionate here at Gracegate that we do life together, that life is better together and you're better connected. And that's why we have so many options for every single person to be involved, because no one should be doing life alone. And through that burden on my heart, I always want to have an open home. I want people to be connected and feel that they belong. And I would love it if every single one of us here continued to be that ripple in our community. The second thing that really breaks my heart is young people not being able to reach their full potential because nobody ever gave them the chance. When I was growing up and a teenager, like Taylor said, teenagers are going through their own rough experiences in life, okay? It's already hard enough trying to figure out what's happening to you. But when I was a teenager as well, it was a rough time for me. My parents split up. My best friend had cancer, and she struggled for a whole year and then passed away in my last year of school. And another friend of mine died in a car crash at that time, and I had moved home. Things were so different, moved away from home. Things were really different for me, and I didn't have anyone to support or encourage me outside of my own family. And I thought, man, I want to be the person that I wish was there for me. And that's what has compelled me and broken my heart to be able to be there for young people. And I feel that's why there's so much value in every single person in this room to invest and have influence in a young person. Because, you know, the time that you give up to mentor, to encourage, to just say, hey, how was your week? And actually stop to listen for the answer, you could be changing the lives of young people in our community. And that's why I'm so encouraged that we have so many spaces for young people. But it can't stop in these walls. It needs to continue wherever we go as well. So these are just things that I feel are the way I'm wired. But how about you? How are you wired? What is it that breaks your heart? You're in a completely different sphere of influence to me. And whatever's going on in your world, you have the opportunity to be a visionary for change. Nehemiah was just an ordinary person. He wasn't a scholar, he wasn't a priest, he wasn't a warrior, he wasn't a king or a prophet. He was actually a servant in some foreign land. But something bothered him so much that it compelled him to make a plan, to create a vision, and to act. So I feel like whatever it is, think about it now. What is that thing that really breaks your heart? And now, here are 3 steps that we can learn from Nehemiah's response of how we can put it into action. So the first thing is that we can sit down and cry and wrestle with it, okay? So Nehemiah 1 verse 4, he says, when I heard this news, I sat down and I wept. You know, we can be devastated about something. We can be angry about the injustice. We can be filled with passion and a heavy heart. But often we just stop there. Don't just push it away to the back of your mind and think, oh, someone else will do something. We should actually let it in, and let it in to the point that it does touch our hearts, that it does challenge our emotions. You see, Nehemiah was living a pretty good life, apart from the fact that his job was a little bit risky. He was living in a palace, eating good food, he had good authority and was well respected. He could have easily been like, well, I'm miles away. Yes, it's sad, but there's not much I can do about it, right? But he didn't, and neither should we. I would love it if you would just sit with that thing, wrestle with it, and actually allow it to come into your emotions, come into your thoughts. Let it weigh heavy on you. So that's the first thing we can learn from Nehemiah. And the second thing we can learn from his response is that we kneel down to pray. For days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven, he said. I feel if something is big enough to burden us, to weigh us down, and to cry about or wrestle with, then I feel it is definitely big enough for us to pray about as well. And maybe you think, well, I don't really believe in God, and I don't believe in prayer. And I want to challenge you, if that's what you think, you know, you on your own can only make a certain amount of difference, but you plus God is always a bigger equation than you on your own. So try it. What have you got to lose? In chapter 1, verse 5 to 11, we actually see Nehemiah's prayer. And throughout his prayer, it's quite long, but what he starts off and he confesses his sins. And he says basically, hey, I know I'm not perfect. He knows he's ordinary like all of us. And he says, but hey, please forgive me. And not just me, forgive my people. And then he says, God, he prays a bold prayer here, and he calls God on. He says, hey, you said you would be there for me, but you said you'd be there for my people. You said you'd restore our land. You said you'd bring us back. And he goes through this list with confidence. He's not timid. He's calling God out on all the things that he's promised him, and he reminds them of them. And if you read on in the book of Nehemiah, which we'll go over in the next few weeks, you'll see that he actually prayed 12 times in this small book. Basically, he was in constant conversation with God about what it was that was on his heart and mind, and we should do the same. He brings his concerns to God, and we can read it in verse 11. He says, please grant me success today by making the king favorable to me. Put it in his heart to be kind to me. So he knew what it is that he wanted, and it's not very common for a servant to be able to go up to the king and ask for anything. You could have your head cut off for that. But he prayed for God to go before him and prepare the way. So are we doing the same thing? Are we really being bold with our prayers, or are we being timid? Because I believe what we pray about actually really reflects what we believe about God. And I think it's great for us to pray for our food, or pray that we have a good day, or to keep us safe. But these are small prayers that I believe is actually putting God in a box. And I feel like God is probably sitting there thinking, is that all? Is that all you got for me? Let me show you what I can do. I am the God who moves mountains, who calms the storms, who walks on water, who heals the lame, who returns sight to the blind. I created the world. I even defeated death. Is that all you want from me? Let him loose. You'll be surprised at what he can do. We need to be praying prayers that actually grow us, that stretch us, that aren't just timid prayers of, things that we just do and repeat over and over again, but they're actually prayers that are bold, prayers that we ask him to move, prayers that we ask him to open opportunities, that we can see visions that he has for us, that we can be a catalyst and change our world as we know it. What are you praying for? So again, if we think about what breaks our heart, we can first sit down and wrestle with it, cry about it. Second, we can pray bold prayers, not just ordinary prayers. And then lastly, the thing that I think we can learn from Nehemiah's response is that we stand up and we act. You see, Nehemiah let his tears turn into prayers, and then he didn't stop there. His prayers drove him to actually act. He had a vision to restore his people, and more than that, to restore his whole homeland, which was huge. It was a huge city. And we can read about it in Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 2 to 8. It picks up in verse 2 and he says, so the king asked me, why are you looking so sad? You don't look sick to me. You must be deeply troubled. And for the king to even notice that just shows the connection they had. Then I was terrified. This is Nehemiah speaking. He said, but I replied, long live the king. How can I not be sad? For the city where my ancestors were buried is in ruins, and the gates have been destroyed by fire. Then the king asked, well, how can I help you? And this is really odd. Remember, this is a king of a foreign land. He could have just said, stop your complaining, smite his head off. But he didn't at all. He actually said, okay, well, how can I help you? So this shows that God had already gone before him like he had prayed. And with another prayer to heaven, I, Nehemiah, replied, if it pleases the king, and if you are pleased with me, your servant, send me to Judah to rebuild the city where my ancestors are buried. The thing that I think is so cool about that is he didn't fumble. He wasn't like surprised that the king was showing him favor and even asking him. He already knew God was going to get him to show him favor. So he didn't fumble and be like, I wasn't prepared for this, but if you give me time, maybe I could. No, he actually just said, if it pleases the king, this is what I want. And then he continues in verse 6, the king, with the queen sitting by his side, asked, how long will you be gone and when will you return? After I told him how long I would be gone, the king agreed to my request. Verse 7, I also said to the king, if it pleases the king, let me have letters to address the governors of the province of west of Euphrates River, instructing them to let me travel safely through their territories. Remember, this is countries that were all in war with each other, so basically he was getting a pardon for safe travels. And then in verse 8 he says, and please give me a letter to address Asaph, the manager of the king's forest, instructing him to give me timber, I will need it to make beams for the gates, temples for the fortress, for the city walls, and for a house for myself." And the king granted these requests because the gracious hand of God was on me. You know, if he didn't pray those prayers, it's very unlikely that the king would have even let him go, let alone did he continue with his boldness because of his prayers. And he said, "Hey, not only can you let me go," and remember, he's a servant. He doesn't get 4 weeks annual leave a year. He's somebody who was a slave. And so he says, "Hey, please let me go. And more than that, give me a safe pass traveling card." And then he goes on even more in his boldness and he says, "Oh, and by the way, can you give me timber for the gates, timber for the walls, and for a house for myself?" This is a bold request. And the things that I like is that he asked for provision and he asked for protection. And he had first, before he asked the king for it, he had asked God for it in prayer, right? And he knew that this vision, you know, it didn't happen overnight. There was actually 4 months from between when he heard the sad news and when he actually acted. And in that 4 months is where he fasted, mourned, and prayed. And in that time, he was coming up with a plan. And he addresses the king, but he addresses the king by then with clarity because he had the time. And he basically said, "Hey, my people are hurting, the walls are down, the city is exposed, somebody's got to do something, and it might as well be me." I feel like too many of us are actually stuck on this last one. You know, sure, we might have a vision, and we can pray about it even, and we've cried over it, and it's been on our hearts for a while. But as soon as it starts to take a long time, or we feel like God's not actually doing anything, often we just give up. Or before we even get to that stage, we never actually plan to act anyway. I feel like we need to stop letting all of our excuses affect us. I feel like more of us need to actually stand up and act. There's a great businessman who's a world-renowned speaker. His name is Joel A. Barker, and he says this quote, "Vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes time." Basically, it's a waste of time. And vision with action can change the world. I feel like if we put those two together and actually did something about it, we wouldn't just be dreamers thinking of an idea that might be nice one day that could possibly change if somebody else did something, but that we would be visionaries, and I believe we're called to all be catalysts for change in this world. You might say, "Well, I'm too busy and I'm only one person and I can't really make a difference anyway, but I know someone else will do something, so it's fine." But I want to challenge you. You know, it just starts with one small thing, one small ripple. Mother Teresa says it this way. She says, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." Every single one of us can do that. See, you don't have to be appointed by man. You don't have to be a scholar or a graduate or a CEO, a boss, a businessman to have God appoint you to act. I believe that God actually gave you compassion to be able to see that need that sort of you wrestle with. I think he actually entrusted you personally, individually, with the problem that you feel sad for. And so now knowing that, what are you going to do about it? We don't know the whole plan of our end result of our visions, but all we need to do is take the first step. Just like Mother Teresa did, just like Christine Caine did, and just like Nehemiah did. My hope is that you won't settle for just living with this discomfort and that's just life. I really pray that you let it bother you so much to the point that it breaks your heart and you can't help but actually act. I pray that you shed tears to the point that it actually brings you to your knees in heartfelt, agonizing, wrestling prayers with God day and night until a vision is born in you that you start to do something. I pray that what breaks your heart actually turns you to act, and that your actions will not only restore joy to you, but also restore joy to the people that you'd be setting free through acting. Basically, I want to challenge every single person here to walk away and do these 3 things. Sometime today, I want you to go and find a space, get a paper and pen, and write down, what is it that breaks my heart? Maybe you're not even clear about it. So write down, hey, what are the things that bother me when I see them in this world? Write them down. And then second, I want you to lean into God. So whether you believe in God or not, I want you to challenge him. Say, hey, if you're real, do something. Bring it to him in prayer and claim his promises. And I promise he won't leave you wondering what if. You'll be surprised at what he'll do. If we're faithful to bringing our request to him, he's definitely going to be faithful in answering it. And then lastly, after you've sat there, you've written it down, you've prayed about it and called on God to do something, I actually want you to act. Don't leave it there as an excuse or think later I'll work on it. Actually do something today. Don't just talk about it, because there's actually so much in our world that needs changing. And if you don't do something, somebody's going to suffer because of it. I really believe that God has actually caused every single person in here to be a catalyst in your own sphere of influence. And you have leadership, and you have influence. Think about it today. What breaks your heart? Keep that question at the forefront of your mind. Today we're so excited because we have one of our young visionaries, one of our high school students, acting on what's been on his heart for a while, and that is to go public with his faith and to get baptized. And that's right, somebody's excited. I wish everyone was. I might say it again. Somebody's getting baptized today. That's good. That's right. So as he takes his next step, let it challenge you to take your next step and to act on whatever it is that you feel God's called you to do. Because God's going to keep revealing the plans and promises that he has for Josh's life, just as he's going to for ours. So be the change you want to see in the world.
Not as warm as it usually is.
Yeah, I just want to echo everything that you set up there, man. I think your journey has been so awesome to watch and be a part of. You're such a courageous young man, and I think when I was thinking of like the words to describe you, bro, like the first one, I don't know why we never you really use this word, but it's just tenacious, bro. You got tenacity, man. And that meaning of tenacity is just like that determination to actually never lose your grip. You just hold strong, man. And I think I've seen that in you. Like you've, despite not knowing everything, you don't know everything about this faith. You don't know everything about God, what he has for you, why stuff comes your way and why it's just messy. But like for some reason, you just keep digging, man. You want to know who he is. And so my prayer for you, and I think I'm sure your friends and your family share this, man, is that, yeah, bro, when you come back up, man, you're gonna have this fresh spirit, this fresh life. I call it like, you're gonna have a new flame in you, man, this new fire. And I pray, my prayer is that you just keep that fire alive, bro. Keep it alive by just pursuing that relationship with God. That's all you're created for, man. You're created simply to be in relationship with him. And yeah, like let that flame take you where it will. Like Zaz was sharing, man, you got so many gifts to share, and that's going to be you for you to discover with God. So yeah, bro, keep that fire alive in you. You're an amazing young man.
Josh, there is nothing more, I guess, like nothing more satisfying as a community and a church when we see someone get in this tank and actually say, hey, I'm going public about my faith. And I'm super excited about what God is doing in your life. And I don't know if I'll use the word that Nate used. I'd describe you more crazy. I think that's a better reference of what I've seen, who you are over the couple of years that I've known you. But one of the things that stands out for me about Josh is He's really ridiculous. He does crazy stuff. Like I can remember him tying a teddy bear to the back of his motorbike, going buying roses and just randomly driving down the streets and hanging out roses to people just to make their day better. His read Love Does, one of our favorite books here at Gracegate, 19.5 times, all right? And that's such a beautiful expression of what following Jesus is all about, because it's actually loving to action. And we're super proud of you. I know your family is super proud of you, Josh. And I just want to pray that you'll continue to be a catalyst, that you'll continue to lean into God today, that you'll continue to be connected to this community so that you can continue to grow in your faith. We're super proud of you. Hey, let's say a prayer and then we're going to baptize you. God, today, we know that you're a God who is for us. And I know in heaven there's a huge celebration as you see this young guy, Josh, saying, hey, I'm going public about my faith. I'm making a decision to accept Jesus as my personal Savior, and I want everybody to see this and experience this. And God, I want to pray that you'll continue to protect him, that you'll continue to be his provision, and that you'll continue to inspire him to act, to go where no one else has gone, God. May you continue to use him as a catalyst to spread your love and saving grace with people. And today it's our privilege to baptize him in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. We good? That is so cool. Man, you guys are awesome. Huh? I think there is no better celebration than someone going public about their faith. And I love this community. I love these kids. I love that we're a community who celebrates this. This is awesome. And today you may be sitting in church and you may have thought about, you've heard God, speaking into your heart and sort of pressing in and saying, hey, isn't it time that you actually take your next step in faith? And if that's the case, I want to encourage you, come and speak to anyone here at Gracegate and come and just say, hey, maybe it's time. Maybe I need to go deeper in my faith. Maybe I need to take my next step. Maybe I need to go public about my faith and tell others that I'm following Jesus step by step. Hey, I'm so excited, and thank you guys for all coming in and celebrating with us. One day we'll have all of you guys in the tent, right? Yeah. All right. I'm going to encourage everyone to stand, and we're just going to close with a prayer today. God, today we are thankful for the celebrations that are happening in heaven right now, as well as here on earth in this church, God. We know that you are doing something supernatural through this community, something that isn't just through our own strength, God, something that you can only do. And God, today, the way you speak into whose ever life, God, I pray that we'll just respond to what you're saying. If it's a vision that you're planting and birthing inside of us, that we'll pray about it, that we'll weep about it, and that we'll most importantly act upon it, God. Let us be a church that applies everything that you show us and that you teach us. And we just give you all the praise and celebration today. Thank you for being present here with us. In Jesus' name, amen.